Phil here from Nasty Magazine with another album review, and this one is quite a controversial album for this artist, and it's the first time it's been on vinyl. And for those of you thinking, where's the CD? It's here. I've got both because I like this album so much. Controversial because Gary refers to it as his drum and blues album. And Gary was experimenting and trying to get into the kind of like techno drum and bass crowd at the time, Fatboy Slim, etc. And you might be thinking, what was he thinking of? A lot of his fans thought that. But you have to remember that Gary Moore was a guitar player, a musician who was always experimenting and looking for something new. He was not that far removed from Jeff Beck, and I'm going to mention that in a moment. Gary Moore started with Skid Row, which was a hard rock band. He was also in a jazz fusion band, Colosseum 2, which is superb. Thin Lizzy, then he turned his hand to heavy metal, and then pure blues. And then by the late 90s, heading towards 1999 rather, he was thinking, what else can I do? And he started to think about using different textures and different layerings to place his guitar upon it. And that's what this album is. And it's one of my favourite albums by Gary Moore because I never tire of listening to it, because it's not what I expected. His guitar playing it's the same sound. He hasn't deviated from that. It's him. But the backing is different. Very, very different. The first track, Go On Home, sets the scene with really like that tight drum and bass techno kind of introduction, but it's mainly guitars, keyboards. But now I reckon Jeff Beck was watching from just over the fence somewhere, because this album, You Had It Coming, and this one, just called Jeff, has similar tracks on it with similar kind of dance rhythms, and it works really well. And the first track, as I say, sounds like Jeff Beck. There's lots of slide guitar. The vocals are great guitar solo. It's a busy rhythm, but it's a great, great groove. Lost in Your Love follows that with a wonderful rhythm. And again, it's a mid-paced tune, lots of wonderful keyboards. And yes, that drum and bass kind of dance rhythm, but the guitar solo on this, it's just so fluid, and there's so many notes flying out the speakers, and that every single one of them is on target. Worry No More is a great song. There's a cover version of a Jimi Hendrix song called Fire, which is not too different, but a modern sounding version of that Hendrix song. Surrender is one of my favourites off the album. It's a ballad. It just floats out the speakers, because there's all this keyboard layering and rhythm stuff, but it allows Gary to just float the guitar notes out over the surface of the ripples of this music. And it's a fantastic track. At the very end of side 4 on here, and the last track on the CD, there's like a hidden track when Surrender comes back on. It's just fantastic. Has Full of Blues is great. Bring My Baby Back. Again, the mixture of blues guitar, some of it's kind of vintage blues guitar, but with this different backing. And it's a meeting of worlds. But I've always liked fusion music. And we think of fusion music as being like world music or jazz or folk. Why not? Why not drum and bass? Why not dance? Why not house music? Why not? Why not do that? One of my other favourite guitarists is Tommy Bolin. And, his album Teaser from 75 mixed so many different styles, from reggae to hard rock to jazz, and it works. It's timeless. And this, to me, has elements of that. Side 3 on here, or just tracks, 8 and 9 on the CD, is probably gets closest to probably the drum and bass stuff, especially with Can't Help Myself and Fatboy, which I think is homage to Fatboy Slim. He was obviously a big artist at that time. But again, it's got all the attributes of Gary Moore's guitar playing, and We Want Love. And the last track is a remix by Easy Roller's remix of Can't Help Myself, and I prefer the remix to the other version is more guitar on it. It seems more driven, and it seems to have a far better groove. But as you've seen, as this has been going on in the corner of the thing, it's you've got the sleeve notes. This comes with a little booklet, a nice gatefold for the CD as well, which I think is a nice touch. But do you think if you're new to Gary Moore, could you start here? Yeah. And if you think you know Gary Moore and you've only liked his blues stuff and you left this alone and decided all those years ago that it wasn't for you, give it a re-listen. But I think it's a great release. The vinyl sounds absolutely brilliant, as does the CD. And it's well worth checking out. And that's both of these are out on BMG Records now. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me and subscribing. Thank you to all my patrons, Yogi, Chris, Andy and Clive, and everyone who's recently come on board. And remember, music is the healer and the doctor, and I shall see you on my next video.